All right, Sistas fans, here's the episode review for the last episode we're getting for the 2019 year and the last episode of the decade. Episode entitled Acceptance. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. This episode, along with the Oval, did not impress me at all. I think these were pretty weak episodes to go on a break for. But as always, Tyler Perry has a way of making the cliffhanger of the episode so damn good that you got to tune in for more. But we start off the episode pretty much Zach still high off the pen trying to have sex with Danny, who's literally trying to do everything but bust out laughing because Zach thinks he's having sex with her, but he's literally just flailing around, and I think she recorded it, and then he passes out. Then we go over to Andy and Gary for about 7 to 10 minutes. Pretty much, Andy's putting her foot down and kind of running the show in the sense of, I think you need to go back and make nice with your wife, at least for the next month, due to the fact that this divorce could be dropped. And if she tries to bring it back to the firm, I can refuse it and she'll have to go somewhere else. Pretty much, this is what might semi work best for everyone, but really it will help Andy get out her own situation because she's in a bit too deep at this point. And I will admit, Gary did make a decent point, even though he is cheating behind Andy and Jasmine's back. The fact that, Andy kept going on and on about how she's been patient, how Gary's been, telling her just to be patient and that he'll leave his wife eventually. And then when he finally gives Andy what she wants him to go back to her. I will admit, I am not taking Gary's side, but I will say that he did make a legitimate point in all this. And he literally goes on to say, well, why don't you just quit, your study your practice and just go ahead and be a housewife. We'll have kids and you can stay at home and I'll work. And she doesn't want that kind of life for herself. So they pretty much go back and forth on this for quite some time. Then we go to Sabrina, Karen, and Andy at the gym. And I will admit, this was one of the highlights of the episode for me, just because it's always cool when we get a new location and to see characters in a place we usually don't see them at. So I really did love the lighting of this scene, just the interaction of the characters, and everyone but Danny's in attendance. At first, it's Sabrina and Karen, and then Andy eventually comes on. But they all just kind of recap what's going on. Sabrina and her situation with Calvin, whether or not she's being too judgmental or should she be more open-minded. And then, of course, Karen and Danny's bad blood between each other. Will they ever make up? Will they ever talk about what happened the night before at at girls' night? Or will they just continue to be abrasive towards each other or just never speak again? But Sabrina freaks out because dang, what was it? Maurice and Calvin, Calvin's helping Maurice work out, and then it looks like they're in a compromising position. And when Sabrina's trying to run away, they push her towards Calvin and they pretty much have a discussion. And before Sabrina came around, Maurice and Calvin are talking about the night before, because Calvin's mad about Sabrina not really accepting who he is and the fact that he doesn't want to change. But Maurice does make a good point in terms of, well, just change those feminine drawers, just wear some boxes or something like a man. So yeah, it's, again, not taking sides because I get the not changing who you are for someone. But at the same time, it really depends on it's like if you like someone so much, you'll tolerate stuff. But at the same time, change. What did Medea say in that one play when she was quoting Maya Angelou? When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. So it was pretty funny when Sabrina's pushed towards Calvin and they have a awkward conversation about whether or not, if he was going to come over. And Sabrina looks so adorable in this scene because she looked like she was actually trying to, wait, Calvin, let's not do this. She looked adorable. But at the same time, it was kind of awkward because Calvin wants to come over and Sabrina wants him to come over, but it's just that they really need to kind of hash things out in regards to what she's open to in regards to his lifestyle choices, if that makes sense. Then after that, they go to the locker. Well, Sabrina meets up with the girls in the locker room right as Andy's walking out. And, Karen's pretty much, well assured that Calvin's gay and asked to, hey, why don't you just ask our gym instructor who's gay as well? And, well, let me just say, the gym instructor is gay because the whole Calvin being gay, that's up in the air. So yeah, let me rephrase that. So Sabrina's unsure about what to do. Then we have Gary moving out of Andy's place, and Gary is convinced that there's someone else that Andy's seeing, but Andy reassures him that's not the case. And, they talk for about 5 minutes, and then he leaves. That's pretty much it. Then we have Sabrina asking the gym instructor about Calvin, and the gym instructor said that he may be involved with one of his fellow contractors because I think Calvin owns like a construction crew or something like that. So the gym instructor, I guess, assumed that Calvin's involved with someone, but based on the preview for next week, I don't think that's the case at all. Aaron comes over to see Andy, and basically it's a situation where he wants to just talk with Andy about talking to Karen about her abrasive nature and how telling the truth and talking to people isn't a bad thing, but when you talk down to them, that's not a good look. But then Andy, right, look, why don't we just both talk to her instead of just leaving it to me? So kind of like the Sabrina and Calvin situation, Aaron is interested in Karen, but it's just that there are some things about her that he wishes could change for the better. So yeah, it's pretty similar. And then, I believe the secretary said that Jasmine had been calling most of the day, and Andy said she would get in touch with her later. And then we have the call between Andy and Karen about how Aaron has showed up, and then also how Aaron, wants to talk about her attitude. So that was a pretty funny scene. It's like, girl, you ain't got nobody in no chair. You ain't doing no perm. That was really good. I did like that. That was hilarious. But then we, let's see, Sabrina, Danny's okay, yeah, we have Sabrina coming over to see Danny, and Danny and Zach are talking. Zach is like pretty much distraught over the whole situation because he literally thinks they actually had sex, but then Danny has the video, and then Sabrina comes over. She's disappointing in Danny because she's like, oh my god, how are you and Karen are supposed to make up now? But then Danny is, excuse the phrase now, she's acting like a cold-hearted bitch in all this, because you being angry at Karen is one thing, but then you traumatizing Zach, and that was messed up. Like, Zach had nothing to do with this. I mean, he was the one who was high and then, thought he was having sex with you. That in itself is jacked up. But then you leading him on and making him think you really had sex, and you're going to send that tape over to Karen. That's just wrong. And Sabrina being disappointed in her, and then I think Danny even called her a bitch when she left. So Danny, you know what? Yeah. So then we go over to the last scene back in Andy's office, she's getting so many visitors today. Paris comes by with some cookies his grandmother made for her. So yeah, I guess that's confirmation that Miss Irene is the grandmother and he's the grandson. Ask her out, gets shut down because she's in a relationship. And, he pretty much, dusts off his shoulders and walks away. And I did like the fact that Miss Irene's card said, don't say no. And then I believe had his phone number in the card. That was pretty good. But then the secretary comes in again. And then it's the PI, the private investigator, who's a female. And shows the first picture. And it looks like a behind shot of both Gary and Andy walking through the park. And that's the cliffhanger. And if you're wondering why this episode review is so short, because not a lot of stuff happened. Literally. That's pretty much it. We had the scene at the gym. We had Zach and Danny scenes. We have Andy in her office. And that's it. So yeah, this episode did have some good moments, but unfortunately, I'm only going to give it a 4 out of 10 because it was not that great. Like I said before, this was not a strong episode to go on a brief hiatus on, but kind of like the past couple episodes, I would just say watch like the back half of it because the first half is rather meh. But overall, the preview for the next episode definitely looks exciting, so I can't wait to see what happens there. But let me know what you thought of this episode of Acceptance for Sistas, the final episode of the decade. So that's something to really take into consideration. How are you liking the show so far? Are you liking it enough to continue watching in 2020? Or because the show comes on the same week of the Haves and the Have-Nots, so you're going to be like, you know what, Jeremy, I'm cool. The Haves and Have-Nots is back on. I'm going to be watching that. The system over. The Oval. Now I'm good on that. So with that being said, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new, as well as the bell notification icon. That way you don't miss out whenever I post new content. Also, links to my social media are in the description below. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook groups, Facebook pages. and we can chat it up there as well. So thanks so much for tuning in to my final episode review of Sisters for the year, and I'll talk to you later.